Hi everyone, my name is Arancha. Welcome back to the channel. I am currently documenting my journey with figuring out that I have endometriosis and adenomyosis. I had an ultrasound about a couple weeks ago that pretty much confirmed I have the two. So fun time to be a woman. But I'll have the surgery in about a week and a half now. That's going to be an excision surgery, so I'll share that if you guys are interested in hearing about that. But today I wanted to discuss my blood test results that I got back, which were honestly pretty shocking to me, considering that I think I live a pretty healthy lifestyle. And yeah, so I just want to take you on that journey and show you what you may or may not have showing up on your blood test results. Obviously, everyone is different, so your test results might show inflammation in areas that maybe mine don't. Or maybe it's very similar. The goal with this video is to push you to go ahead and get your testing in, to go find an endometriosis specialist that can help you hopefully overcome these conditions. This is not meant to be a substitute for information that you should be getting from experts and from your doctors. This is just supplementary information from a girl who is going through this firsthand. My background is not in medicine. My background is actually in engineering. So
you're joking.
Yeah, I just thought I'd throw that in there in case I also get any information wrong. Please, any doctors, feel free to correct me. For the sake of saving time, I'm just going to focus in on any abnormalities found in my blood test results. So I'm not going to go into detail of every single element on the results. I'm just going to focus in on anything that was glaringly terrible, which there were a few things that were glaringly terrible. And we'll go from there. I'll also mention a few other components on the blood test result that happen to show up as normal for me, but that could show up as abnormal for you also if you have endometriosis or adenomyosis. There are currently no biomarkers approved for the diagnosis of either of these conditions. So just because something shows up on your blood test result doesn't necessarily mean that you have either of these conditions, but it just helps form the overall picture of what's going on with your body, specifically with inflammation, given that these are estrogen-dependent chronic inflammatory diseases. So yeah, let's get into my abnormalities other than maybe my personality. First abnormality for me, which was the most shocking, I think, for me. I think there were two things that were super shocking, but was my cholesterol level, specifically my LDL cholesterol level, which is casually known as the bad cholesterol. My LDL level, just to be frank, was at 196, which is considered very, very, very high. Like, apparently your girl is about to have a heart attack. It is, I guess, studied now at this point that women with endometriosis have 20 to 30% higher chance of cardiovascular risk, so risk of heart attack or risk of a stroke. So here we have one particular study from 2009 titled Unfavorable Lipid Profile in Women with Endometriosis. The study found that the total cholesterol level of the endometriosis group was 30% higher than the control group, and LDL level of the endometriosis group was 38% higher. The present data demonstrates that the patients with endometriosis have an unhealthy lipid profile compared with healthy women, with the most substantial difference being in the LDL levels. Here we have another article from PubMed titled Endometriosis and Cardiovascular Disease. This one is from 2025, and it looks at various studies on the topic and cites that endometriosis significantly impacts endothelial health, which can lead to arterial stiffness and endothelial dysfunction, both known factors in cardiovascular disease development. Research highlights that women with endometriosis often exhibit elevated levels of arterial stiffness and reduced endothelial function, which increase their CVD risk. My doctor checked my weight, my BMI, my visceral fat levels. All of these things actually came back very normal and within very healthy ranges. I would be curious to find out if after the excision surgery, my LDL levels go down, perhaps because my level of overall chronic inflammation hopefully goes down after the surgery. So we'll see, and I'll keep you posted. Abnormality number 2 that showed up on my blood test results was insulin resistance. Again, another shocker for me, considering the fact that I feel like I have a pretty healthy diet. Specifically, my fasting glucose times my fasting insulin divided by 405, which I think is a calculation that my doctor did. I got a 2.56, which puts me in the insulin resistant category. I am kind of a little bit frustrated with the fact that I have adjusted my lifestyle so much, and yet these numbers are coming back a little cuckoo, but it is what it is. It looks like there might be an association between triglyceride glucose index and endometriosis in adults, as seen in this study done on 2,500 women in the United States. Note that the triglyceride glucose index is different than the HOMA-IR equation we just did, but both measure insulin resistance. This study showed a positive correlation between the triglyceride index and susceptibility to endometriosis, a nearly linear relationship. With regards to adenomyosis, my apologies, there's just been a little bit less research in comparison, but here we have a journal article titled Endometrial Inflammation and Insulin Resistance in Adenomyosis, which looks at how insulin resistance worsens endometrial inflammation and can affect fertility. Specifically says that prolonged exposure to pro-inflammatory mediators in the endometrium of adenomyosis women may disrupt insulin signaling pathways, leading to insulin-resistant status. Note that there has been limited funding for the research on both endometriosis and adenomyosis, so more research is needed to confirm these associations, but nonetheless, very interesting. Let me know if you're also dealing with insulin resistance with regards to endometriosis and adenomyosis. Irregularity number 3 for me. There is something in the blood test known as immunoglobulin G. I probably am mispronouncing that and I apologize. So immunoglobulin G, typically a high or elevated number of that typically indicates that your body is dealing with high levels of inflammation and actively fighting either an autoimmune disease, sometimes cancers, or endometriosis or adenomyosis. So my number for that came slightly above the normal range. With endometriosis, your body recognizes the endometrial-like tissue in other parts of your body as foreign and as something it needs to fight, leading to higher levels of inflammation. Here is an older study from 1983 that looked at increased immunoglobulin G in endometrial tissue in women with endometriosis. It specifically found that both IgG and IgA are more commonly found in the endometria for women with endometriosis than women without the disease. Note that results between different studies are inconsistent, so it's not a reliable marker, but including it nonetheless since it did show up on my blood test. Other potential markers to look out for on your blood test result if you think you might have these conditions are CA125, which can test for ovarian cancer, for example, but it can be elevated if you have endometriosis. So that is something that you should look out for. For me personally, it came back normal, so it's not something that I'm personally worried about. Something else you should look out for within your blood test are the inflammatory cytokines that would also show that you have high levels of inflammation in your body. All right, so now we're going to get into what my doctor is specifically advising for me to do to help bring down my levels of inflammation and hopefully help fight these conditions. This is not meant to be a one-size-fits-all for everyone. I just kind of want to share what my doctor told me for myself in case this information is useful for you. So the first thing we want to do for me personally was to go through with the excision laparoscopic surgery. So I have that in about a week and a half, which I am super nervous for. I've never gone through any type of surgery, so that will be interesting for me, and I will share the journey for that as well. Step number 2, my doctor sent me home with various supplements and also medication to help with my insulin resistance. He gave me an omega-3 supplement to take twice a day, a daily vitamin, vitamin D, magnesium, and inositol. I'm probably butchering that. But that is a sugar-like compound that is supposed to help manage my blood sugar levels. He also gave me medication, metformin specifically for my helping bring down my blood sugar levels. And I'm taking these now prior to the surgery to help hopefully bring down my numbers and, get on top of things as soon as possible.
3 hours later.
So the next thing my doctor recommended for me specifically was to get in contact with a nutritionist so they could help me also lower my LDL levels as well as my blood sugar levels. I have met with a nutritionist and they have given me a plan for a low inflammation and low glycemic index diet that I will be following. Prior to my surgery and 2 weeks after my surgery, they're having me on an even stricter diet where we are eliminating gluten, dairy, nuts, and legumes. They tell me that this will help me recover a little bit faster from the surgery, but these are not things that I would need to eliminate permanently. It's just for the time being. So yeah, we'll see how that goes as well. I'm excited to see what other changes I could be making to my diet to help alleviate my issues. All right, so that brings us to the close of our video today. I hope that by sharing my results, it encourages you to go get your blood work in and to go speak to an endometriosis specialist. With regards to the inflammation seen in these conditions, it's tough because we live in a world where our diets are more processed, where we are seated for a large part of our day, where maybe we are more stressed than generations prior to us, and where there are more environmental pollutants that can maybe influence the inflammation in our bodies. I guess my advice to you is to not ignore your body. If you feel any type of period pain, especially extreme period pain that is chronic, I'd advise you to go look into endometriosis, adenomyosis, and speak to a specialist. Much love, everyone. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one where I will likely be talking about getting ready for my surgery. Yay! All right, bye.